Hi, I'm Barbara Dover, the publication chairperson of the Gilmer County Genealogical Society, and welcome to our multimedia presentation for the Evolution of Ellijay project. The purpose of this project was to document the changes in this mountain town in Georgia from the 1900s till today. We hope this becomes an archival and an ongoing project for the past, present, and future. As I like to say, it's hard to know where to go if you don't know where you come from. Multiple sources and hours of research went into creating the Evolution of Ellijay, but memory has to be the most important resource. During July and August of 2021, I had the honor of recording conversations with Gladys, Dotson, Spivey, and Mack, Logan, two Gilmer County natives whose ancestry can be traced back to the origin of Ellijay and Gilmer County. Gladys, my fourth sister, has been with the Genealogy Society for years, serving on the board in various capacities. Her roots in Gilmer County run deep, and she can prove it. Mack Logan is a businessman in Ellijay and has also served as a county commissioner. He comes from a long line of Logan businessmen, and our grandfathers were business partners in the early 1900s. When listening to our conversation, you'll also find that we are cousins. But hey, if you come from one of the first families of Gilmer County, you'll find that all y'all are cousins. While you listen to Gladys and Mack, you can take a look at a picture album of Ellijay's evolution. These images have been collected from a blue million sources and show the before and now of Ellijay, Georgia. We hope you enjoy this presentation, and if you have personal stories about Ellijay's evolution, please send to gilmergenealogy@gmail.com so that we can add to our collection. By the way, if you haven't already, please start documenting and recording your own personal evolution, because descendants eventually do become ancestors, and your descendants deserve to know the story of your life. It's Friday, July 30th, 2021, and I'm sitting here with Gladys Spivey, a native of Gilmer County whose ancestry goes back several generations here in the county. Looking out at her yard filled with beautiful flowers, and earlier we walked through what she calls the Ponderosa, which is her vegetable garden. And now we're going to talk a little bit about Ellijay and Gilmer County when she was growing up. Tell us about it, Gladys.
Well, I didn't grow up in Ellijay. I grew up in the country in the western section of the county, which is the Tails Creek community of Gilmer County. We didn't get to town very often, but when we did, it was always a treat, because I remember going to Penland's Dry Good and Grocery Store, Reese's Brothers Store, the Rackley's store, the dry goods store, and I remember one time going to Mr. John Wimpy, and I remember his girls giving us chocolate milk, and I don't know whether I had ever had chocolate milk before, but I'm sure I had. And it was just Ellijay to a kid when you first go into the city. I guess you would call Ellijay a city back then, but it was just a treat, and I thought it was so big, and everything was so different to what it was in the country, because all the neighbors, we looked after each other. From if you were sick, all you had to do was just to let someone know, and the whole community would be in. And I remember back in the country part of when we were in the country, this wagon team would come through. It was a rolling store, is what they called it. Had all kinds of spices, pie fillings, pans, pots and pans, whatever the country folks needed, that was what was on the wagon. And it would come around about once a month. So, and another big thing in the country was our church, going to church, to the revivals, to the homecomings. And just the neighbors it was so different from the city part of my life till it was just so different,
If you don't mind my asking, how old are you?
I'm 84 years old.
And when were you?
Let me rephrase that. I will be 84 in December.
So, what was the year you were born?
1937.
So we had just barely come out of the Depression,
Right.
when you were born. And I'm sure
We grew our food in the gardens, and we lived on Mr. Grady Wimpy's orchard. He had an orchard and vineyard, and that's where we lived. And Dad took care of the grapevines and the apple trees, and Mom and the kids, we had the gardens, the corn patches, cornfields, or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, Mom, in the summertime, would can hundreds and hundreds of vegetables, fruits, and whatever. And there was always that good old blackberry picking time with all the chiggers.
I know about those.
Anyway, they had a cellar dug into the bank with a roof over it. Mom had shelves all the way around that cellar, and that's where she kept her food, and that's where we kept the potatoes and all things like that. And that's what. And there was always the hog killings in November.
Oh,
And
so really, when you went to the grocery store, you were mostly
we were buying the sugar, the coffee.
what they call staples,
Staples. That's what we.
not the metal ones, but the edible
no,
ones.
we grew
Yeah.
everything else. We grew everything else we grew.
So that made you self-sufficient,
Right.
so that the Depression really wasn't as hard on you as it might have been
If I had lived in the city.
in a city. Yeah. Because you just kept doing what you'd been doing before.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. And we didn't work all the time. We had our free time. We played our games. Grandpa would make us truck wagons, slide boards. We'd slide down the pine straw, and it's the wonder we hadn't killed ourselves, but thank God we didn't. But when I started to school in 1945, my brother and I, we had to walk about 3 miles to this little country school, Crossroads Country School. And all the kids in school were in this, we were all just, we wasn't poor, but we would have been called poor, by most
maybe
standards.
financially.
But with love and family, no, we wasn't poor.
Yeah. Right.
We wasn't.
Your riches were more than just money.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thank God for the work ethic that my mother and my father instilled in me, and that's why I still have my garden. What I can do, as long as I can do, that's what I'm going to do.
So where did you go to school after the Crossroads School?
I went to Pleasant Grove. We moved on over to, we lived in a big house right where the Red Apple Barn stands today.
Okay.
And we went to Pleasant Grove School. And then we moved on up on Boardtown Highway to Mr. Jim Kell's place. And that's when I started to Ellijay. Well, it was grammar. Back in my day, it was a grammar school. It wasn't elementary, it was grammar. I started in the 6th grade, and Miss Lorraine Gudger was my teacher.
So, did you continue in that school? Because at that point in time, it was also a high school.
It was all the grades were together. Yes, that's where I went to school till I was 17, and I dropped out of school to go to work at the Davenport Hosiery Mill to help Mom and Dad financially.
Mm-hmm.
Then I worked there till they closed the Davenport Hosiery Mill. Then I worked at Hampton Mills till I got pregnant with my son Philip and had to quit. And then when Robert Shaw Controls Company come to Gilmer County, I started to work there in 1972. And I closed that place down also.
So, when did you and your husband Wayman marry?
1959.
Okay, and Philip was born in?
1968.
Okay.
And our daughter was born in 64.
Okay. And you got a chance to experience a little different environment when you were working for Robert Shaw.
In 1997, Robert Shaw decided to move their plant to Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. So a group of us went in August of 1997, and we worked out there 3 months, and then they asked me if I would stay and be the quality supervisor. So I come home, talked it over with the husband, and we decided, yes, I would go back, and we left January 1998, and we lived in Laredo, Texas, but I crossed the border every day till September of 1998.
When you came back from Texas and Mexico, what did you notice any changes in Gilmer County or changes in yourself and Ellijay?
Yes, I did. It seemed like they were more, I call them foreigners, but really it was just people moving in, more people coming from different locations. We had a lot of Hispanic people here that was not here before. We had different people that came up from Florida in different locations, and the buildings, some of the buildings had been torn down, and things that I grew up with had been torn down, and, other things put in their place, And Walmart came to Gilmer County, Food Line came to Gilmer County, different different things that we hadn't had before,
The 515 Appalachian Highway.
Yes.
How did that affect Ellijay in your eyes? How did it affect the actual downtown area?
Well, downtown area seemed to die, with the grocery stores and the doctor's offices and things that were here before 515 came. They all moved over onto near the 515, and seemed like really it was dead. And then the antique places started, opening, and the restaurants and things like that.
So it was mostly after 515 came, there was more commerce over in the east side of the county.
Yeah.
And Ellijay became more of a
resort type
or tourist destination.
Yes, that's it.
And maybe people decor for people that were moving in out of different places.
Yes.
What do you see in downtown Ellijay that is still there that you remember from when you were younger? Say when you started working.
Well, I guess the Ellijay Hardware is still there.
Except it moved down.
It moved down.
South 5.
The Bank of Ellijay became United. No.
BB&T.
Yeah, BB&T, and it moved over on 515.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The telephone company's still here.
The telephone company's still there. The jail moved from the city out on 52.
They call that Apple Alley because of all the apple orchards.
Yeah. And let's see. Well, there's the courthouse, of course, is there. They tore the old courthouse down around 2007. We have a brand new one. The library moved from downtown to out on 282, off 282.
So there are a lot of changes, really.
A lot of changes. Well, we still have Mr. P's out on the Main Street, North Main Street. That's still there. And that's just about it. I mean, everything else has changed so much.
So you worked at three different mills. The hosiery mill, Hampton Mill, who made rugs, and then Robert Shaw Controls.
Yeah, made parts for gas stoves, controls for gas stoves.
Those types of industries aren't
we don't have anything like that. And we had carpet mills here, a spinning mill,
bedspread mill.
Yeah, spread houses, and they're all gone.
So what do young people do for work now? If
they leave the county,
Mm-hmm.
They have to leave the county to find a job. A lot of them go to Dotson. A lot of them go to Atlanta.
Or they're in the service industry where they work in restaurants and
right.
Or at some of the chain stores like Walmart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them work at Walmart. Yeah, they do. But no, it's completely changed in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
Well, I know progress moves on, but some of the things that been just torn down, like some of the old buildings, and it hurts me that the history of our county has not been better preserved. And it bothers me that so much of the things that we did have, like the mills and things to work at, now that we do not have anything that would keep our young people in the county, and that kind of bothers me because
Or bring them back.
No, we don't have any. I don't know why. I think the powers that be would just like for it to be a tourist.
A destination site.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you could tell your great-grandchildren about Ellijay and Gilmer County, what is the one thing that you would ask them to hold on to in their hearts for you? That was a bad question. Let me start all over. What memory of Ellijay and Gilmer County would you want your grandchildren and great-grandchildren to know?
Probably when I was growing up, how the people helped. If you needed something, they was always there to help, whatever you needed. And it seems like today that we're more for I instead of trying to hold the families close like we did back when I was growing up, And that bothers me because I know the families are spread out because I've got a grandson in Indiana, I've got a grandson in Colorado, and their families. And they had to, the one in Colorado had to go because there was nothing here when he got out of the service, out of the Air Force, to come back to. So he had to take a job miles and miles away from the family. And that's what that's what I wish my family would remember, just to stay close, and the people that are around them in the community, treat them as you do your family, you know. And that's the way it was when I was growing up.
No matter where you live, make it the same type of community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, you're very active in the Gilmer County Genealogical Society.
Yes.
And as a lot of people said, if we could digitize you, we'd probably not need Ancestry.com.
I have heard that before.
So,
and they tell me I'm related to everybody in Gilmer County, which is the truth.
and it's not due to what a lot of people think about when they think about the Appalachian Mountains.
No.
It's just because of the fact that people in communities married like brothers would marry sisters of another family,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth.
As a matter of fact, in my family, my half first cousins, 3 of them married brothers of a different family.
I have the same thing kind of in my family. I'm not sure if I can remember who they are off the top of my head, like you can.
And I was at the Gilmer County doing my volunteer day at the library, and someone came in and said, "Miss Spivey." I had my back to the door, and they said, "Miss Spivey," and I turned around. I said, "Yes, can I help you?" And, "Well, I'm looking for so-and-so Dotson." I said, "I think you're my cousin."
Well,
and she was.
Yeah. Well, that's what's cool. That's what's cool about a small town. A lot of people think that that's not necessarily a good thing, but
it is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it helps to bring that spirit of community, and that everybody's a family.
Yes, it does. It really does. But no, I am related to most everybody in Gilmer County, with the exceptions of the people that's moved in here, and I'm not sure some of them not my relations too.
Well, Gladys, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add before we close?
Well, I'm just glad that I have lived to be almost 84 and lived in the community that I was brought up in for most of my life. I worked in Mexico for almost a year, and the culture's so different. I was just so glad to get back to Gilmer County.
There's no place like it.
I just almost kissed the kudzu.
All right, we're going to leave it at that. Thanks, Gladys. It's Wednesday, August 11th, 2021, and I'm sitting here with Mack Logan, a Gilmer County native and resident. Comes from a long line of families in Gilmer County, and we're just talking a little bit about Ellijay, the way it was in the past, present, future. And I want to know a little bit about my granddad, Samuel Gordon Dover, and your granddad, Benjamin Cicero Logan Sr., who had a partnership way back in the early 1900's. Can you tell us a little bit about it and just what you remember from what your granddad told you? Because I didn't know my granddad. He died way before I was even a thought in my daddy's mind. So just tell me about it.
Well, as a young man, my grandfather had some farms up there where I was raised on Boardtown Road. And it seemed that he would always come up and visit us as his 4 boys and the family. And I took a lot of time, and he took a lot of time up with me. And during these times, he would we'd get in conversation. Of course, I was a young kid, probably 10 years old or something, and he would tell me how him and Mr. Dover got in the over Chevrolet business, and they also had farms and property, and they had a a grocery store, dry goods store, and all this, and he was explaining all this to me. But and they got along real well and always had a good relationship. As time went on, they decided to part and go different directions. And so they decided one day, about trying to split up all of what they had, the property and all. And I can remember my grandfather saying, well, we sat down and we decided that each one would write down what they were interested in and would like to have. And so that's he said that this goes on for a week or so. So one day they met and said, laid it out on the table, and Mr. Doe said he wanted a Chevrolet place, a dealership. And it so happened my grandfather wanted some of the property and the other store, Mack. So they did, and of course they had a good relationship from there on. And then, of course, as a young kid, like I said, a young child, my grandfather would always come up and pick me up, and we'd go see about the cows. And he would tell me, this is a good one, and this one is a good one. And one day we had a gentleman from Dalton that was interested in buying a couple of cows. And I have to add this in. As a kid, 12 years old, he said, I'm going to let you make the deal, Mack. And I said, Pa, I don't know how to do that. He said, I know, that's the reason I want you to start. Well, I never will forget that. As a young boy, these gentlemen came up, and they were looking at the cows. And I remember this one particular cow that they wanted to buy. So my grandfather asked me, said, pulled me off the side and said, son, what would you ask for that cow? Well, I didn't know what to say, but I said, I guess, Pa, about $300. He said, okay, he said. So the gentleman, he picked out this cow, and he said, I believe I want this, and Mr. Logan, how much is it? He said, well, you've picked the cream of the crop, so it'd be $500. But as time went on, they had a great relationship. And of course, my grandfather was in politics, his county commissioner. And I had the opportunity later on in life, when I was 15 years old, to start working on the Tails Creek Road when they was grading it. My brother Jack and I, we was out there working with the prisoners and the free people and all. I can remember going to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and quitting at 6 in the evening. And as I've told some kids that came out, they always come in here and want a job, I will pay you what I worked, what I drew when I was your age. And I said, we made $27.50 a week.
Oh my!
And that's what we was paid, But I also remember my grandfather took some of my money and took it to Atlanta and put it in the bank for me. So yes, when I graduated from school, I had that little nest egg. But then, the county has really grown, and we have it's a different generation here now, and a lot of people moved in over the years. We went from a population when I first went in business, I think it's 8,500 people in the whole county, and today what we have is probably close to 30,000 in the county, and we're going to see that probably double in a few years, because with the Atlanta moving north and going into the mountains. But I went in business with the public in 1968 when I came out of service, and I was lucky. I had someone trusted me, I guess, and
you had that nest egg.
And that nest egg, I have to say I had to buy me a car.
Did you get a Chevrolet?
I got a Chevrolet,
All
a 1955, two-door hardtop. had to spend $1,700. But it's been a great life. I certainly enjoyed the time with my grandfather.
Now, he married a Dover.
He married a Dover, and my grandmother passed away when she was, I think, maybe 62 or 3 with a heart problem. But, of course, we visited out there quite a bit. And, of course, us boys tried to kind of dodge Grandma because she had put us to work in the yard. But we loved her, and we'd do whatever she asked us to do. And it was a good life with them.
Well, now, since she was at Dover, do you think did she have something to do with the partnership of Gordon, my grandpa, and your granddad? Do you think that maybe...
I've never thought about that question.
Because they were first cousins. They were first cousins.
I would say yes. Yes, for sure. That my grandmother was kind of a quiet person, but well-spoken. And if she disagreed with my grandfather, I know a couple of times I've seen him in discussions, and it was always respect there. But I know my grandfather is Mr. Dover, him being that relationship and being in business. I always heard him speak very highly. So, and they always, seem to be kind of on the same page of making their decisions and all.
Well, they had 2 businesses together.
Well, they had
actually 3.
Yeah, they had a lot of property, small farms. I can remember my grandfather telling me that. Plus, they had the dealership and the mercantile place there is with the groceries and clothing and all of that.
And early on, they sold mules.
My grandfather was, and I can remember that part real well. A lot of people wouldn't believe this, but I saw as high as 100 mules and horses on the farm up there at one time where I was raised. My grandfather bought those mules in a time that I was dealing with, saw him involved by himself. And I think back when him and it was Dover and Logan, they would go to Atlanta and buy them in a sale. That's where they had the horse and mule sale. And it was they would have them. They would be brought up here on train, and they would unload them over here to depot.
Okay.
And then they would carry them up there. But now they had a sale. I don't know where both of them were involved or where there's one involved in this. But up there where I was raised at the big barn there, there was and when I was a small kid, they held a sale there on Saturday morning at 10:30 every Saturday morning, and they either sold or traded. And they would be every once in a while somebody would bring a calf or a cow in, but they were the one that had all these horses and mules that they traded on, and which
that's where they come up with the mule trading.
That was the mule trading part right there.
Do you think perhaps people would trade some property for it, or a portion of the property?
Yes. I'm sure that there's a lot of the horses and mules traded on property back in those days because that was about the only source of getting to work in the farms. In the mountainous part up here.
Right.
Yes, I'm sure of that.
I meant, did people trade a portion of their farm to get the mule?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
That would have.
Well, I know when Dad was working at Dover Chevrolet, this was probably after his dad passed, but he had property. The Dover Chevrolet company had property out 282 because somebody had traded that property for a Dover Chevrolet car or a truck.
Yes, I knew of people that definitely did that.
And now my siblings own it.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of that went on back then
Yeah.
because there wasn't, I guess, that much cash money being made by them. They didn't making that much, but oh yes.
now, how many cars would 40 acres and a
Oh,
mule
my God.
buy?
Well, that I can remember pretty well that, we had a good sized farm up there and a lot of, where they was cultivating, a lot of corn or growing corn. And my grandfather, I know he grew syrup cane, cabbage, all of that was grown on the farm. And naturally, I wanted to get out of that part of it.
Oh, yeah.
That was too much work. But yeah, it was good times, I think, for them back then. The two people that would be it. You don't see a lot of people that goes in business that gets along, and can kind of have the same opinions and same picture of where they want to go to.
And then dissolve the partnership amicably.
Yes.
Without bringing attorneys in there and
Yeah.
all the other nonsense. Yeah.
That's exactly right. But yeah, it was a very good time.
That was cool. Well, thanks, Mack. All right, so tell us about the deal to purchase the Perry House property.
When I was on the Board of Commissioners, that was around 1990, we purchased it from Philip Perry, where the parking lots are now. The house was in both sides of that street, whatever the name of that street is.
Broad Street.
We purchased that for $225,000 from Philip Perry.
$225,000.
$225,000.
Including the house.
Including the house.
Okay, so the garden that Clinton Harper and Glenn Sells had to be before then.
Yes.
Because it was private property at that time and they rented it from the Perrys.
That was around 1990, 91 that we purchased that.
Okay.
Or the county did.
All right. And then 2008, they voted to demolish it. And there was a lot of discussion about keeping it.
Yes, it was.
Because it was historic.
Against it and for it, and it was. But.
Were you a commissioner at the time? You were off by
I was there for 4 years.
Okay, so by 2008, it was.
Yeah, I was young. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Carson, come to furniture. Carson.
So that would have been the Jerry Ferris Ken Bailey commission.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Jerry or Ken can tell you really on about taking the house down and all. I'm sure that they were there at that time.
Okay. Okay, so the Logan family had a dairy a little bit east of downtown Ellijay, kind of across the street from the depot, and it was a low-lying area. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
When you cross the steel bridge, there was a dairy barn there, and a big barn. All of that bottom there was in pasture, and my grandfather had a dairy farm right there. So what he did, when to milk the cows, they would peddle that milk on Corbin Hill, all over the city. As a little country boy, I helped deliver the milk a lot of times. During the rainy season, when it would flood everything over there, they had to move the cows out.
Vicky, line 1.
They would come up River Street and take a ride on North Avenue, go out to the end of town, and hit Boardtown Road, and go up Boardtown Road 1 mile to where the farm is where I was raised. And there they would leave the cows till all the waters went down. Wow. And then we'd run the cows back. That's the way we moved them.
I live in the area called Hog.
What would your grandpa say if he were to see the Ellijay of today?
I think I'll answer it this way. As a small child, probably, I'd say maybe 7 or 8 years old, maybe 9. I remember sitting on the back porch one Sunday during the summer, and he made this remark I've never forgotten about. He said, folks, if you look into the future, you will buy property south of Ellijay because the town will never move north. There's no place for it to go. And did that happen? Yes.
Thank you so much, Gladys Spivey and Mack Logan, for sharing in conversations your memories of Ellijay and Gilmer County, Georgia, and sharing your personal perspectives of how it has changed through the years. We hope you've enjoyed this Gilmer County Genealogical Society presentation of the Evolution of Ellijay, 1900's to present.